Pardon the interruption, but I'm Mike Wilbon. I'm in the studio alone today. You were with me yesterday, Tone. Why not today?
And Tony Kornheiser, they only let me leave the retirement home on Mondays and Wednesdays. That's it.
Oh, I see. Okay. That's like that gas rationing in the late 70s and early 80s, right? You had to have an alternate license plate to get gas, or you ran out and you begged somebody to give you a ride somewhere.
You had to line up for hours. I remember that better than I remember yesterday. But I might be in tomorrow. You never know. Welcome to PTI, boys and girls. In today's episode, Aaron Rodgers returns, the Dolphins blast the police, and Jeff Saturday joins us for 5 good minutes. But we begin today with the San Francisco 49ers playing without Christian McCaffrey last night and still having no trouble with the Jets, beating them easily 32-19 after leading 32-13 late in the fourth quarter. The 49ers, you'll remember, lost last year's Super Bowl to Kansas City in overtime. So, Wilbon, what did the 49ers show you?
That they're still a great team and that they are, to me, one of the four. If I look at four favorites to reach the Super Bowl, I'm looking at San Francisco and Detroit, which would be a rematch from last year, and I'm looking at Houston and Kansas City. So those are the four teams I look at and go, this is what you're supposed to do at home. Yeah. Did they roll the Jets a little more easily than I expected? Probably so, but I think the Jets have been overrated and overstated from the first day of summer when people start looking at the NFL season. So I'm not on the Jets where other people are. But, Tony, even without McCaffrey, I expect Coach Shanahan, I expect him and his staff to put together an offense that knows what it's doing, even against an allegedly elite defense, which we were told the Jets have it. I didn't really see it last night with scoring on 8 straight possessions from the 49ers. So the 49ers, they are what we thought they are, and I expect them to move on this way with or without McCaffrey. They can't do without him every week, but last night they had somebody in there. He was studied, he was ready to go, and they went.
I'll get to him in a second. I'll start out by saying that I think the 49ers are the best team in the NFC. I have thought this for the last 3 years. I think they have the most varied offense in football, and I was interested last night to hear both Troy Aikman and Joe Buck talk about the fact, effusively praising Kyle Shanahan for the way he runs an offense, which also made me think it must kill this guy that he hasn't won a Super Bowl yet. He's lost 2 now in San Francisco, and he lost 1 in Atlanta when he was the offensive coordinator, and, New England came back from 80,000 points down or something like that. Last night with McCaffrey out, the star of the game, and I want to get his name right because I never heard it before, is Jordan Mason. Who's he is what everybody said. He's an undrafted running back from Georgia Tech. This is his 3rd year there. He backs up McCaffrey, obviously. He had more carries last night and more yards than he'd ever had in the NFL. He had 28 carries and 147 yards. And Wilbon, this creates a statistic that I find very interesting. He became the 10th undrafted running back to get over 100 yards as a 49er since Kyle Shanahan got there. Yeah. Since he got there in 2017. So Kyle Shanahan knows what he's doing. So if I'm Christian McCaffrey, I don't want to rush back, but I might say to myself, let me get back quick because I want my job.
Yeah, you don't want the, Lou Gehrig situation working against you. No. Before the game last night, Aaron Rodgers predicted, quote, if we win, the headline's going to be, we're going to win the Super Bowl. If we lose, same old Jets. So, same old Jets it is. Rodgers' offense held the ball for just 21 minutes, and the defense gave up 8 straight scoring drives. So, Tony, should the Jets be more concerned with their offense or their lavishly praised defense?
Yeah, I can tell from your tone that you agree with me on this, that their foremost concern has to be their defense. Yeah. Which was allegedly their calling card. They got the Williams brothers, they've got Sauce Gardner, they got a defense filled with stars. And the premise as to why the Jets were going to be good, was that Robert Saleh, who was the defensive coordinator under Shanahan at the 49ers, was a wizard on defense. So let's point this out again. The 49ers scored on 8 straight possessions. Yeah. Okay, so where exactly was the defense?
McCaffrey.
Clearly, Shanahan outcoached Saleh last night. Aaron Rodgers, as you mentioned, was hardly on the field. He was on the field for a total of 21 minutes and 20 seconds. And why? Because the 49ers controlled the ball all game long. Mike, Aaron Rodgers has had, let me get the exact number, 225 career sacks in the NFL. That's the least amount of time he has ever been on the field for.
So the 49ers did exactly what they wanted to do. And game one is unlike any other game in that you've got weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks to prepare. Weeks and weeks and weeks.
Right.
So, yes, you give Shanahan and that staff that kind of time. They've shown you for the last few years, as you mentioned, Tony, they know what to do at that time. The Jets, on the other hand, did not. But, Tony, I don't think this is just about time. I don't expect to see MVP Aaron Rodgers anymore. He's 40. It reminds me, and he's one of the all-time greats. And if you're out of the 32 teams in the league, if you're 23 or 24 of them, you might like to still have Aaron Rodgers and throw away the guy you got. But it doesn't mean he can do to the game and another team and the week in the season what he used to do. It's kind of like LeBron James. He's still great. He's greater than anybody at this age you can imagine, but it doesn't mean he can control the league and control the wins and losses like he used to. So the notion that Aaron Rodgers is that guy was a flawed notion to me to begin with. And if the Jets are counting on just that, Tony, they got a problem.
Okay. You say 40 as if it's really old. What would we give to be 40 again?
Well, a lot.
Look, this is a tough open for the Jets to fly across the country and have to play in San Francisco. The only thing tougher is to have to play Kansas City in Kansas City. I watched Rodgers last night. I think he can still spin it. I think he can still put it in a small area. He had some drops last night.
He had some bad
throws,
throws,
what would be concerning to me, I found this out today, a statistic that was amazing to me. That was Aaron Rodgers' 24th straight game of not getting to 300 yards. 24
Not a
straight
coincidence.
Mike, I'd have pounded the over on that. I was amazed by that. I really was. You know, and even saying that, he's going to be a lot better for the Jets than the last two big quarterbacks, Sam Darnold and Zach Wilson, were. Let's move to Sunday's detainment of Dolphins receiver Tyreek Hill. Newly released body camera footage from the speeding stop shows Hill handing over his ID to Miami-Dade officers and rolling his window back up. The police eventually pull Hill from his car and force him to the pavement before handcuffing him. The Dolphins called the video, quote, maddening and heartbreaking, unquote. Wilbon, what questions does it raise in your mind?
I don't have any questions. I'm old enough and have lived long enough and have driven while black long enough. I don't have any questions. The police acted with excessive force. I don't need anybody to tell me to say allegedly. No, we got the video. They reacted in excessive ways from 1 through 10, from A through Z. Having said that, more than one thing can be true. If Tyreek Hill rolls down his window, he might have diminished the chances of that happening. I say might because when you're driving while black, DWB as we call it, you don't have to provoke police, particularly in certain places, to get dragged out of your car. So he might have gotten dragged out anyway. But he did not attempt to mitigate those circumstances by lowering his window, which goes to a conversation many of us have to have now with our 16-year-old sons about what happens when the police stop you driving while black. So more than one thing can be true, and I think that is absolutely the case here.
So I watched the video that was available early this morning. It's not hours of video. It was probably 30 or 40 seconds. And my first impression was that Tyreek Hill did not seem particularly interested in being cooperative with the police.
Right.
You know, because he was saying, get your hands off my window, so on and so forth. Having said that, the reaction is totally excessive to take him out of the car, to handcuff him, to lay him face down on the ground. There are always other policemen around in this circumstance. And I was hoping that one of them or two of them might say to the particular officer, is there a way we can calm this down a little bit without going, you know, from 0 to 60 in 10 seconds? That didn't happen. No, that didn't happen. This is the second time that sports has gone into this realm in recent months. Scotty Scheffler, the same sort of thing, a traffic stop very near where you're going to work, which is what happened with Tyreek Hill, very near where he's going to work. And although it is not the same, I'm not going to say it's the same. Scotty Scheffler ended up arrested, fully charged in a jumpsuit in jail. You know, the second time we've seen stuff like this where you say, what exactly is going on here?
Yeah, but
What exactly?
not forced to be on the ground
Nope.
with a guy with his knee in his back. And that's where I sort of
excessive. Totally
excessive for sure. And Tony, there's going to have to be some repercussions. They're going to have to be. But does this surprise me? No. Do I have questions? Not a one.
Let's take a break. Coming up, why did the loss of Christian McCaffrey not matter more? Didn't matter at all. We're going to ask Jeff Saturday.
We're also going to ask Jeff whether NFL passing being so far down in week 1 can be traced to the preseason, which coaches now treat like it doesn't even exist. Ask him that.
This kid gained 147 yards last night on the ground against an allegedly superior defense.
Tough run.
But not a superior defense.
I tell you what, you don't have to overuse McCaffrey.
Look.
It's time to get into the football trenches by welcoming back our great friend with those piercing blue eyes, ESPN NFL analyst Jeff Saturday, dressed like an adult. You have my thanks for that. Let's start with this. Christian McCaffrey, he's an all-pro player. He's a great player. Jordan Mason is an unknown player. You played offensive line. You blocked for guys like this. Can you explain why there was no drop-off, none last night?
Well, I think the scheme that the 49ers hit the Jets with was particularly well designed. I mean, I think when you think about Kyle Shanahan, I go back to Mike Shanahan in Denver, and he had 1,000-yard backs just produce them. So the scheme that they run is fantastic. They were schemed up extremely well. But I'll say this, what Mason did last night, I had Dominic Rhodes when we were in Indy, and Edgerrin James, who's now in the Hall of Fame, and Joseph Adai, who were first-rounders, and Dami was undrafted guy like myself, came in, 1,000-yard rusher. Very talented guy, played with an edge, played with some sharpness. Same thing, right? Like, you can put some of these guys in. However, the consistency of McCaffrey and what he can do week in and week out when teams start scheming for you and taking you out of the game does a little bit different. But, man, hats off to a great night last night. Those guys started the season well, and, all arrows are pointing up in San Fran.
We're not sure where things are pointed yet in Washington, but we're going to ask you about rookie quarterback Jaden Daniels, who ran 16 times, and his coach, Dan Quinn, said, and I quote, "We'd love to see him remain a passer first." Jeff, is this a sentiment you would echo as a lineman?
Oh, sometimes. I'll say this. It's one thing if he's like running around and it's very ineffective. He was fairly effective with his legs the other day, right? I mean, he's churning out yards. He's trying to convert first downs. And when you drop back, if you don't see it and you're not processing it well, or you're not processing what defense are doing, I do think when you're as athletic as he is, show what you have and kind of do it as long as you're protecting yourself. I thought he did a good job. I didn't see him take a whole bunch of like unnecessary shots. He doesn't slide well, but he kind of dives to make sure he doesn't get hit, which I'm a fan of. I understand what coaches are saying. They do want you to stay in the pocket. They want, but like I look at Anthony Richardson, and this guy, he last year he gets hurt, has to come out. He has some spectacular plays on Sunday against the Texans, but he ran one in from the 5. And listen, as an offensive lineman, you're awfully glad when that dude scores 6 for your team. So it's kind of a love-hate, and I'm not writing off all of what Daniels did. I understand what Dan Quinn's saying, but for an offensive line, production matters as well.
Sliding matters. Kids don't play enough baseball. They don't know how to slide anymore, which is ridiculous.
That's true.
Passing yards and touchdowns were way down in week 1, Jeff. I think it's the lack of teams' interest in actually doing something in the preseason. Regardless, is that hurting the product overall, the fact that these first couple of weeks seem like preseason at best?
Yeah, probably. I mean, even when I was playing, your first 4 to 5 weeks, you didn't really know who you were as a team, right? You're kind of developing. I would think, though, part of it is the youth of the quarterback position as a whole, right? You're seeing a lot of guys drafted and play right away, whereas when I was playing, guys would kind of sit the bench for a little bit or not have to start right away, or when they did start, it may be ugly, but it might be great. I think right now we're just kind of going through a phase in the NFL. We got a lot of young QBs. They are not seeing the game. And here's the other part, and Wilbon, you and I both know this. Defenses are ahead of offenses early in the season no matter what, right? They can put a lot more in. They can get a lot more complicated than you can offensively. And so it takes a few weeks to catch up. And so I think that's probably a product of it as well, because you're doing less in preseason. And so when you do hit that season, those defenses now have a 4 to 6 week stretch instead of just 4 as back when I was playing.
We will get you out of here on this. You mentioned young quarterbacks. Bryce Young still qualifies as a young quarterback.
Yeah.
Second year, bad again for the Panthers. Bad again. Fans are antsy, understandably. How long does a number 1 overall quarterback pick have until his teammates start getting antsy as well?
Not very long, Tony. And I'll be honest with you. Part of this is because of the pressure that when you see young quarterbacks ascend so quickly. Think of Stroud. I mean, think about what Anthony Richardson did the other day when those two played each other, and he's chucking, 60-yard bombs in the air, and you're seeing these BBs get thrown, and these guys, playing a game like that. When you see success from young quarterbacks in your class, and they are playing up to what everybody expected you to do, and you're not, I think, excuse me, I think that's when other players start to take notice. They're going to say everything right. They're going to develop him, do the things they can. But look, you're not blind as a player. You're seeing the same highlights everybody else is seeing when you go home. Your family's saying the same things to you that we all say as fans to each other. So to block it all out is not the truth. But you're going to ride with the guy because that's your job. And until they decide to move on, that's the guy you got to go block for.
Thank you, Jeff. A pleasure to have you on again this year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great to be with y'all.
Let's take one last break still to come. A big matchup on the mound in Los Angeles tonight.
Yeah, I like that matchup. I'm staying up for that. An injury update on 2 NFL receivers.
One of them is yours, right?
That's right.
One of the receivers is yours.
Naga, baby. I'm staying up for that. 10:30 start. You know about watching those 10:30 starts, Tone, don't you? Oh, wait. Maybe not.
Happy time, people. Happy 61st birthday, Randy Johnson. The Hall of Famer won 303 games over 22 seasons, starting in Montreal, then Seattle, then Houston, then Arizona, then the Yankees, back to the Diamondbacks, and finished in San Francisco. Johnson is second all-time in strikeouts. He won 5 Cy Youngs, won a World Series with Arizona. This leads us to Chris Sale, another tall, thin, hard-throwing left-hander. Sale grew up idolizing Johnson and now wears Johnson's number 51 when he pitches for the Braves. This year, Sale is leading for the Triple Crown for pitchers. Sale is first in the National League in wins, 16, ERA 2.38, and strikeouts 213. Could be his first Cy.
Tony, that would be good. He's finished runner-up only once, but he's been in the top 5 6 times. But here's the deal. Chris Sale, as great as he is, it's an outside chance, outside for him to get to 200 wins. I mean, it may settle in like 175, and even that might be pushing it because I think he's got 137 wins career now.
Happy anniversary, Pete Sampras. On this day 34 years ago, Sampras defeated Andre Agassi in the final of the U.S. Open to win his first major at the age of 19, making Sampras the youngest male player to win the U.S. Open. Along the way, Sampras defeated Ivan Lendl in the quarters, breaking Lendl's streak of 8 straight U.S. Open finals, and John McEnroe in the semis. So Lendl, McEnroe, and Agassi had combined for 9 U.S. Open titles. Sampras went on to win 14 majors, which was an Open-era record at the time of his retirement. Sampras won 7 Wimbledons, 5 U.S. Opens, 2 Australian Opens. He became world number 1 in 1993. He held that spot for 286 weeks.
Sampras, who was now pretty good on a golf course, he wasn't celebrated enough because he had to duel with Agassi his whole career. And at the beginning of it, he helped take down Lendl and McEnroe, who were at the top of the pyramid when he came in. He was only 19. Sampras not celebrated enough, Tony, as far as I'm concerned.
A melancholy trails to Ed Kranepool. For lifelong Mets fans of a certain age, Kranepool is almost as important to the history of the Mets as Tom Seaver and Jerry Koosman. Kranepool was the Mets' first great hope. He was signed out of James Monroe High School in the Bronx at 17 years old, made his debut at 18 in 1962, the same year the Mets were born. Kranepool played first base mostly over 14 seasons, played more games than anyone ever for the Mets. He was never a great player, never hit more than 16 home runs in a season, but he was beloved by Mets fans. Late in his career, Kranepool became a dependable pinch hitter, and by the way, he was on the 1969 Amazing Mets, who won the World Series. Ed Kranepool was 79 years old, And I have this signed card that I treasure.
Wow.
Right, Wilbon?
Wow.
Ed Kranepool.
Okay, two
Signed
pieces of
card.
memorabilia I know you to have. Nolan Ryan's jacket from the Houston experience.
Yep.
Okay. The
Astros. Yep.
And that card, I've never seen you with that card before. How'd you come by that?
My friend Jody, who was a doctor, his friend who's a doctor, treated Ed Kranepool in Florida and sent me the card. Big finish quickly.
Let's do it.
Paul Skeens at 9 strikeouts to set the Pirates rookie record. You impressed?
No, but he joins a group of others, Kerry Wood, Dwight Gooden, and Mark Pryor to have like 150 strikeouts and 20 starts or less. That's more impressive. PGA Tour officials are meeting with Saudi officials today in New York. Are you intrigued?
Intrigued, not enthusiastic. Puka Nacua out 4 games with a PCL sprain. Roma Dunze week to week sprained MCL. Your thoughts quickly?
I don't want to see either of those guys hurt, and you know how I feel about Dunze. U.S. men's soccer versus New Zealand friendly tonight. Is that significant?
No, they have no coach. Yeah. Last one, Shota Imanaga versus Yoshinobu Yamamoto tonight. Who you got?
The Cubbies are 20-6 in Imanaga starts. I'm going with my boys, even in Dodger Stadium tonight.
We're out of time. We will try to do better the next time. Colin St. Max and shout out, club champion.
Colin, again, I'm Mike Wilbon. Same time tomorrow, Knuckleheads. You can get the PTI podcast on the app or Apple Podcasts. To paraphrase Ernie Banks, we won in Dodger Stadium last night, so let's win too. Now here's sports.
PTI.
All right, Wilbon, was last night more about the 49ers being good or the Jets being bad?
The 49ers, to me, Tony, they looked like a team that we saw when we left off the season when they were in, though losing, the Super Bowl overtime. I mean, they look like that team. They look like they're ready to go. Like there's so much to play for still because they haven't won one of these in the Kyle Shanahan brief tenure, which has been spectacular, but hasn't yielded a Super Bowl so far. More about them. I mean, the Jets are overstated. I mean, I said that last week and the week before that and the week before that. They're overstated and probably overrated. Do they have the personnel, Tony, to play themselves? Yes, starting with Aaron Rodgers. Play themselves into contention? Sure they do. Of course they do. And they have a defense that we've been told is really, really good, though they didn't show it last night, giving up scores on like 8 straight possessions to the Niners. But that game was in San Francisco in the opener. The Niners are supposed to win that game. The Jets are supposed to show better. They didn't. But that result is more about the Niners and the Jets.
Yeah, I mean, my immediate answer is it is both. It is both, like in the beer commercial. One team can't be good if the other team isn't bad to a certain degree. But I think a lot of that game was about coaching. These two guys know each other very well. Kyle Shanahan is not just the head coach of the 49ers. He calls the plays, so he's the offensive coordinator. Robert Saleh was the defensive coordinator. They went to a Super Bowl together, And in this particular case, it seemed like Saleh wasn't able to counteract the stuff that Shanahan was doing. Because Aaron Rodgers never got on the field. He's on the field for 21 minutes. He's had 225 starts in the NFL. He's never been on the field for that brief amount of time. Shanahan said, we're just going to keep running it. We're going to eat the clock. We're going to prevent Rodgers from doing anything to us. And that, it seemed to me, worked. So I would give more credit to the 49ers as you did. I would.
All right. Now, on this show, we for the most part, declare our loyalties and our love. Everybody knows what I'm wearing on Sunday is the Chicago Bear jersey. You sort of now have moved away from your Jets roots and your boy Willie Namath. What did you feel last night? Did you feel anything?
Okay. They were the team of my youth. I am long past my youth. The Mets were the team of my youth. Again, long past my youth. What I felt last night and what I wanted to see most of all was, can Aaron Rodgers still throw it? And I felt he could still throw it.
Yeah.
So I think they have a chance of certainly getting better. Mike, that's a tough open. At San Francisco to open for a New York team? Come on, that's tough open.
He threw it real well on that third down play when he was down around the ankles and didn't get that conversion. But I'm not hating on a former Packer. Maybe I am. That's it. We're done. Back to you.